everyone, I'm Catherine and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be handling one of the most infamous psycho ex-girlfriend killer cases. That's right, we're going to be covering the Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander case. I'm going to do something structurally a little bit different in this video. So I'm going to start by telling you what happened in the case. So I'll start with a factual summary of the Jodi Arias case. But at the end of this video, I'm going to show you some of the highlights from the actual trial. So the actual footage of Juan, the police prosecutor, cross-examining Jodi, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around to see that, as well as some of the other witnesses. So let's jump right in. This is Travis Alexander. Travis was born in Riverside, California on 28 July 1977. After his father died in 1977, Travis moved in with his grandma, and at this time he became an Orthodox Mormon. Travis practiced religion very strictly, and in his 30s he became a motivational speaker for a legal company called Prepaid Legal. Prepaid Legal is a multi-level marketing company based in Arizona. This is Jodi Arias. Jodi was a small-town girl born in California on 9 July 1980. Jodi lived a normal childhood. There were no outstanding traumatizing incidents. Jodi started college, but she dropped out so she could pursue a career in photography. Jodi's career in photography failed dismally, and in 2006, she started working at Prepaid Legal. Also in 2006, the couple attended this business night for Prepaid Legal in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's at this conference that they met and they instantly hit it off. Jodi recalls that she was absolutely besotted by Travis. He was a charismatic businessman. He wore the suit, he really dressed to the nines, and he really swept Jodi off her feet. Travis reports that he thought Jodi was a very attractive young woman and he was very interested in her. After Jodi and Travis first met, they spoke multiple times each day. In the space of just 5 months, they sent each other over 80,000 emails. Because Travis was a very strict Mormon, he could only date other Mormons. And so soon into their relationship, Jodi actually converted to become a Mormon, and it was Travis who baptized her. Jodi and Travis began officially and openly dating in February of 2007. At the beginning of their relationship, Jodi and Travis's friends described them as a great couple. They were very in love and clearly very besotted with one another. Part of Travis's religious beliefs, they believe that you need to wait to have intercourse until after marriage. And he and Jodi's relationship was very physical, like sexually physical. So Travis always had some reservations and some upset at himself for, not following his religious beliefs and waiting until marriage. And it was only 5 months after they officially started dating and after Jodi had converted to become a Mormon for Travis that he ended their relationship with Jodi. Following their breakup, Jodi became very obsessive. She would call Travis numerous times a day, and the electronic record showed that whilst Travis was definitely over the relationship, Jodi was definitely still in love with Travis. Following the breakup, Jodi moves from California, so where Travis is, to Arizona to be closer to family and friends so that they can help her get over this traumatizing breakup. You have to keep in mind, at this point in time, Jodi's fallen absolutely head over heels for this man. She's converted to become a Mormon for this man, and only 5 months after they officially become a couple, he breaks up with her because they've been having, other reasons, but heavily because they've been having a sexual relationship, and this absolutely devastates her. So she moves to Arizona so she can have some support to get over Travis. Unfortunately, getting over Travis is not something easily accomplished by Jodi. Even though Travis openly says he doesn't think Jodi is the right person for him or good for him, he and Jodi maintain a physical and sexual connection and relationship. So they're not together, and she's still obsessively in love with Travis, but they continue to sleep together from time to time, and they continue to, have some risque phone calls, and they maintain some sexual heated contact and communication. Travis starts seeing and dating other people, and of course this causes enormous arguments between him and Jodi, because how can you do a no strings attached type of sexual relationship if you're head over heels obsessed and in love with someone? So it's just this vicious cycle of them continuing the sexual relationship, Travis dating, and Jodi becoming absolutely devastated every time she finds out about it. There's evidence that comes forward where Travis will be asleep in his bed, and there's some evidence given about Jodi traveling to his house unannounced, climbing through the doggy door, and then jumping into his bed. Now, if you were, so upset and shocked and annoyed at this, you'd kind of get up and be like, get out of my house, get out of my house. But that's not what happened. Travis allowed her to sleep in the bed unannounced, and they engaged in sexual activity. So it's kind of like, when it suited him, it's fine, come over, etc. But had he had another woman in the bed, I'm sure it would have been different. But what it appears is that Travis may have been giving some mixed messages at this point in time by allowing her to come to his house and sleeping with her when she does surprise him and come to his house. So there may have been some mixed messages to Jodi at this point in time. I'm speculating, but it could have been that Jodi thought maybe he'll change his mind. We've still got so much of a connection and I'm so in love with him that maybe if I linger in the background and if we maintain this sexual relationship, maybe he'll realize that I'm the perfect woman for him. That could have been what she was thinking. Travis didn't disclose to his friends that they were still having intercourse and maintaining a high-ish level of communication. For example, sometimes they still went on little holidays and little trips together. So he didn't talk about this with his friends. I mean, they were very much in the dark about Jodi, but he did disclose to his friends about her obsessively calling him, 20 times in a night and that type of thing. And at this point in time, this is where his friends started to become a little bit concerned about some of the behavior. For example, his Facebook was hacked several times and all of his friends speculated that it was Jodi because she wasn't happy that he was talking to someone else or liking photos. And it was a massive issue that his Facebook and other electronic passwords had been hacked. In 2008, Jodi left Arizona and she moved back into California. So she started living with her grandparents. And this is close to where Travis lived. And all of Travis's friends commented to him that they thought she was a psycho, like moving back to be closer to him. And they were very, very concerned at this point in time. In May of 2008, Travis started talking to a new female. So Jodi was still in the background, still very much in love with Travis, but he'd started talking to a new woman and Jodi knew about it. Now, Travis, this new woman, this new love interest, and some of his friends were due to go on a little trip on the 4th of June of 2008, and he had a conference call scheduled for that morning as well. On the 4th of June of 2008, Travis didn't show up to meet his friends and he didn't make the conference call. Now, he lived with another gentleman at home, and the man at home thought that Travis had gone on the trip, so he thought that he was out of town. And Travis's door was locked every time that he would go and check. 5 days later, so on the 9th of June of 2008, the friends that Travis had made the plans to travel with and who he was supposed to speak to on the phone, they went to his house because they were concerned. They hadn't heard from him in 5 days and he just didn't show up. This was very out of character for Travis. When they got to the house, they spoke to Travis's roommate, and the roommate said, well, yeah, I checked the door. I thought he was out of town with you guys. It's locked. So he had to search frantically around the house to try and find a key to the door. And he finally found the key. And when he opened the door, he saw pools and pools of blood. They finally made their way to the bathroom, and that's where they found Travis's body dead in the shower. It was clear that he had been stabbed several times, and the autopsy results later showed 27 times he was stabbed. He had been shot in the head with a .25 caliber bullet, and his throat had been severed so deeply that his trachea, so his windpipe, had been severed. Of course, Travis's friends freaked out. So one of the female friends that were there called 911, and she spoke to the operator initially. She basically said, we found Travis dead in his room. She later puts one of the males, that the roommate who actually went into the room and saw the dead body in the shower and all the blood, she puts him on the phone, and he basically says, yeah, he's definitely dead. They speak to her for a little bit of time. They give her as much information as possible. Then this is the interesting part. The 911 telephone responder says, does he have any enemies? Is there anyone who you think might have done this to him? And straight away, they all say yes, his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Arias. The friends later give evidence about, sometimes Jodi, there was an incident where Jodi showed up to Travis's house and she slit all of his car tires because she was upset that he'd been talking to another female, or she was upset with him. So there was a lot of pretty crazy indications that Jodi had some mental issues. And they also told the police eventually about the doggy door incident. Of course, the police next telephone Jodi and they say, look, this is the circumstances, this is what's happened to Travis. Do you have anything to say? And she says that she's devastated, she breaks down, she's emotional. And she says, I have no idea. I haven't seen Travis since April that year. At this point in time, Jodi is the police's primary suspect. The police start investigating Jodi and they find that on the 2nd of June, so days before the murder, she rented a hire car from a dealership which was located very, very close to where her grandparents live. They also uncovered that days leading up to the murder, her grandparents reported that there had been a burglary in their house and that their gun had been stolen. Now, when you actually fact check, the police discovered that the gun, so one of the casings that were left at the crime scene at Travis's house, that matched the gun, the grandparents' gun that had been stolen during the alleged burglary. In the days leading up to the murders, the police also uncovered evidence that Jodi had contacted another one of her exes by the name of Daryl Brewer. She asked Daryl if she could borrow 2 5-gallon gas canisters. So the police also uncovered evidence that Jodi had purchased a third 5-gallon gas canister. So that was on the 3rd of June. And then later that evening, she purchased 8 gallons of gasoline on her MasterCard. Then 4 minutes after that, she purchased another 9 gallons of gasoline with cash. So the police are obviously thinking she doesn't want us to know how much gasoline she has. So why is she trying to get all of this petrol? Where does she want to go that she doesn't want to stop at a service station? So she obviously wants to travel a long distance for a particular reason. So this is all going to premeditated murder. You see what I'm saying? So why does she want to travel without getting caught on a service station? That's where the police's line of thinking was at this time. So during the police investigations at Travis's house, they found his brand new camera that he adored. It was in the washing machine, which they thought was really weird because it was a new camera. He wasn't trying to throw it out. And why would someone put it in the washing machine? Now, when they conducted some further investigations on the camera, they could actually see that several photos had been taken on the 4th of June and had been deleted. And using their police software devices, etc., they were actually able to uncover the photos that had been taken. And what they saw was photos of Travis and Jodi on the day of the murder at his house in his room in vicarious sexual positions. So they were saucy, raunchy photos that looked like they'd been taken just before they were about to sleep together. Now, some of the deleted photos were of Travis after, or just before, the moments before he was murdered, and also of the bloody scene. So it looked like they were taken by accident after Travis's throat had been slit and after all of the stab wounds. So some of those images were caught on this camera and deleted. Importantly, Jodi was in those photos, and the photos were time and date stamped. So the police knew that they had Jodi at this day, at this time in the afternoon at Travis's house, and this is when the autopsy results show that he was murdered. So they had her at this house at this time. So there was also a bloody footprint that had been caught on the camera in one of the photos, and later this footstep was actually determined to match one of Jodi's shoes, so her shoe size and her actual shoe. The police note that the killer had tried to clean the crime scene, so they tried to wash all the walls and the floor. However, they missed one handprint, and when the police conducted tests on the blood, so it was a bloody handprint, when they conducted test results, it was later determined that the DNA was of Jodi and Travis, and it was a bloody handprint on the wall. At this point in time, it's not surprising that the police were fairly certain that Jodi was responsible for the murder. So upon further investigation, the police discovered that after the murder, Jodi traveled in the hire car all the way from California to Utah. She didn't stop at any service stations or anything like that on the way. So the police are like, you've done this to create your alibi. So that's what Jodi did straight after the murder. She got in the hire car and she drove all the way to Utah, and she spent some time with Daryl. When Jodi arrived in Utah, her behavior was a little bit suspicious. It was really hot and she was wearing long-sleeved clothing, which was noticed by her new boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, revived boyfriend, and his friends. She also had some bandages on her arms, which they all thought was a bit weird. So you would have seen at the beginning of this video photos of Jodi. Here's one blonde bombshell. By the time she got to Utah, she dyed her hair brown. And this is a photo of the brown hair. It's a massive difference. And that was something else that was noticed by her current boyfriend as being a bit strange. When the Utah boyfriend questioned some of the cuts on her arm, Jodi said that she got them at the pizza shop that she worked at, and she gave the name of the pizza shop. Now, the boyfriend was a little bit suspicious, so he Googled the pizza shop and it just didn't exist. When Jodi was in Utah, she was actually pulled over by police at one point in time, and the front number plate of the vehicle, the hire vehicle, had been taken off, and the back number plate had been flipped upside down. When Jodi was arrested, she did her cute little, I'm Jodi. Oh, she says it must have been kids at the venue I was just at. I'm not sure how that happened. So she always has this cute little voice, and she thinks that she can manipulate everyone, and it works. So the police were like, okay, well, we're just going to fine you. But that's how the police had some evidence as well that she was in Utah at that point in time. So Jodi then traveled from Utah back to California, and she returned the hire car. She was whacked with a massive fine because she had said she was only going to be driving locally, but they could see from the mileage that she'd traveled way more than locally. So the car dealership records show that when the vehicle was returned, all of the car mats were missing, and there were stains in the car that looked like red Kool-Aid. Now, when they asked Jodi about this, she said, yeah, I spilled red Kool-Aid all through the car. And unfortunately, instead of reporting it, they did a deep clean of the car. So they believed her story, and they did a deep clean of the car, which impacted the evidence that the police were able to get from the vehicle itself. Jodi pretended that she was so innocent, had nothing to do with it. She was posting online. She was talking to Travis's family. And she was so cocky that she was going to get away with this that she even offered to give some of her DNA to the police. And it was actually the DNA that she gave the police that the police used to match the blood on the handprint that she forgot, that she missed at Travis's house. So, she was all very cocky and thought she would get away with it to her detriment. Based on the overwhelming evidence, Jodi was indicted before a grand jury on the 15th of July of 2008 for first-degree murder charges. So there are various YouTube channels that have Jodi's full interrogation by the detective, and I recommend that you watch it if you're interested in this case. It's so interesting to watch, and her behavior is she's very cocky. You can see her in the interrogation. When the detective leaves, she sings. She pretends to sleep so as to try and pretend that she's very calm because she's innocent. And her behavior is weird. There's one point in time, and I'll show you a video, she does a headstand. So when Jodi is first interviewed by the police have the time-stamped photos. So they know she was at his house on the day of the murder. She was there with the camera, and you can see the photos of Travis bleeding out, the photos that had been deleted. But in her head, the camera's been through the wash, it's broken, the photos have been deleted. I've been in Utah, I'm seeing someone else. She thought she was so smart and that the police weren't really onto her, but they have the date-stamped photos. And of course, it's really important for potential defense. So if you divulge, I was never there, but you've got the date and time-stamped photos, your defense counsel and lawyers are going to have such a difficult time defending you, because what other story can you have? You lie, you're caught lying, I'm not there. At least if you said you're there, but it was self-defense or something like that at the first instance, she might have had a better defense. But Jodi, during the police interrogation, she denies, I was never there, I have no idea. And the police are sitting there with these photos. Then they kind of apply some pressure, and they're like, Jodi, we have photos. They mention the camera, they say the date and timestamp photos, and Jodi's response is, but are you sure it's me? Are you sure it's me in the photos? So again, she's maintaining initially, I was never there, had nothing to do with it. After a lengthy interrogation, and after she becomes aware that they've got these photos, they know I was there, Jodi changes her story, and she basically says that there were people that broke in, there was an armed robbery, she was scared for her life, they're the ones that killed Travis, and she ran away. She somehow got away from these armed assailants. And the reason she lied initially is because they said that they would kill her if she told the police what they had done. So Jodi changes her story completely at this point in time. Jodi, perhaps too late, but Jodi then instructs a solicitor, a lawyer, to represent her in these proceedings. And it was actually during the proceedings that you can see Jodi's story changes again. So she must have had some pretty stern discussions based on the evidence with her lawyer when it all came out. And she changes her story again, so for a third time. She changes her story to the fact that she says that Travis had an interest in underage boys and girls, and you'll see in the footage that I show at the end, he does make some suspicious comments regarding some sexual endeavors with a 12-year-old girl, but it's more fantasy based. But she tries to create this perception that he has some issues in that respect and that he was very domestically towards her. So I'm not allowed to say certain words on YouTube, but she basically goes with a domestic type of case and says that on the day of the accident, there was no armed assailants. She was there, but it was self-defense. So she changes her story to a self-defense case. Soon before the trial started, there was fake letters that she tried to produce and say that Travis had written to support her self-defense type of case, and she actually fired her defense team. And then when there was some expert opinion and expert advice given on the letters and they were found to be fraudulent, she actually hired her defense team back and they ended up representing her at a trial. But you can just think about what a mess. I mean, for her defense team would have just been thinking, all right, so can we win the unwinnable case? And I mean, it's happened in other cases, but my gosh, what a dog's breakfast she's made this case. 3 different stories, completely different stories, fake fraudulent letters, my goodness. The trial lasted a whopping 5 months and Jodi's own testimony lasted 18 days. So the prosecution ran the case that Jodi was an aggrieved ex-partner who couldn't cope with the fact that Travis was dating someone new and that he didn't want to be with her, that she showed up, she planned it, she bought the gasoline beforehand, she planned the alibi of the other ex-boyfriend and that she was going to do the hire car. She had a premeditated plan to go to Travis's house and kill him that day. So that's the case they ran. And then you have the defense who, well, I mean, they're working with the third of Jodi's stories, but the third story they tried to run, the defense story they tried to run, and they had psychologists come in and say, you know, Jodi was traumatized and they can understand why she lied twice. So they had evidence to that effect come in. But their defense was that her actions, so she did kill Travis, she did slit his throat, she stabbed him 27 times, it was her. So let's not get that twisted. She admits slitting his throat such that the windpipe was severed. She admits to 27 stabs and then the gunshot was her. But she says it was justifiable because he lunged towards her and was going to attack her and that she was acting in self-defense. So they're the 2 cases that were run at the hearing. So she says that she dropped his camera. So when she was there and they were having the fun together, she dropped the camera and this made him aggravated and so angry, and this sparked the abuse and his outbreak towards her, which she then responded to. So that was the evidence Jodi gave at the trial, is that she dropped the camera, he went into a rage, and that she had to commit 3 different types of horrific acts upon Travis to stop him from attacking her. No surprises, Jodi was found guilty and she was later sentenced. At the time that the guilty verdict was delivered, you could hear a crowd of people outside cheering. So the public was very much against Jodi in this case. Now, the jury could not make a decision on whether the death penalty should be applied or not. And on the 15th of April of 2015, Jodi was formally sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So she didn't get the death penalty. Jodi is now serving her life sentence in the Arizona Department of Corrections at the maximum security level. If you're interested in this case, it's definitely worth watching footage of the trial. It was recorded. And the police prosecutor is vicious, but it's so amazing to watch. He just tears shreds of Jodi during the cross-examination. It's cringy. Some moments when you watch it, it's like, oh, I mean, you can feel the tension in the courtroom. So what I've done at the end of this video is I think it's about 10 or 12 minutes of footage, like best moments, highlights from Juan, the prosecution's case, and some of the witness testimony from the trial. So let's take a look at that.
messages, what did they say? I'm not saying specifically, but what was the subject matter?
Things referencing specific sexual body parts, interacting with other sexual body parts, things like that, and plans in the making of meeting up at hotel rooms of his house, things like that.
And you were very offended by that, right?
Yeah, offended would be accurate.
Right? And you were so offended that you still decided to go on vacation with him, right?
That wasn't why.
Well, no, you were very offended. You just told us that, right?
I didn't say very, but yes.
Okay, you were offended, right?
I was hurt.
Ma'am, didn't you just say you were offended?
Offended would be accurate.
And didn't you just say it was a good word, right?
Yeah, there's many descriptors to use.
But you just said just now it was a good word, right?
Yes, I think.
You think? It means you don't remember what you just said?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You just said offended was a good word, and when I used it, then you took issue with it. Is it a good word, or is it not a good word?
It depends on how you used it.
Well, I'm saying you're the one that I asked you the question, that you were offended, and you said offended is a good word, right? That's what you said, right?
I think so, yes.
So, well, you think so means you don't know, right?
I don't know.
Well, this just happened. How is it that you are not remembering what you're saying?
Because you're making my brain scramble.
I'm again making your brain scramble. So, in this particular case, the problem is not you, it's the questions being posed by the prosecutor, right? We were talking about the Cancun issue, man. You never told the detective about the Cancun issue, did you?
What Cancun issue?
Do you remember that we're talking about Travis Alexander? Let's start with that.
Yes, I remember that.
That's why we're here, because you killed him, right? Mr. Alexander is out of the shower, correct?
Yes, he is. Or he stepped out. I don't know if he has 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but he stepped out.
Well, he needed to have been out of the shower in order for him to grab you and body slam you, didn't he?
Not necessarily.
Oh, so you're saying that he was in the shower, and from the shower he kind of reached over and grabbed you and body slammed you sideways, even though he wasn't out of the shower?
No, I said he definitely stepped out, but I don't know if he had both feet out or 1 foot out.
So when he is in the shower, he at least takes one step out, and you're far enough away so that the water's not going to be getting on the camera, right? Right?
Yes.
And in this position where his legs are open, potentially, right? Right?
Yes.
You're saying that he reaches over with one leg still in the shower, and he body slams you. That's what you said, right?
No, that's not what I said.
Ma'am, were you crying when you were shooting him?
I don't remember.
Were you crying when you were stabbing him?
I don't remember.
How about when you cut his throat? Were you crying then?
I don't know.
So take a look then. This is a very small closet, isn't it?
No, it's bigger than the cell that I live in.
It's bigger than what?
It's bigger than the cell that I live in. It's not a small closet.
Ma'am, we don't want to know where you live in. Do you understand that?
I'm just using that as reference. It's
Ma'am,
not small.
do you understand? Did I ask you where you were living?
No.
We're clear, right? We do not want to know where you're living right now. Do you understand that?
Okay, sorry.
No need to be. Take that attitude that... Is there an issue with you with answering the questions as they're posed?
Sometimes, but I'm trying to answer them the best I can.
So is it an attitude issue with you then?
Objection, argument of Your Honor. Move to strike.
I'm not asking you if you're looking at his eyes. I'm asking you whether or not you could see his face.
Not really. Like, he was kind of like...
Okay. So what you're saying then is that he is more like a bull rather than a linebacker because he's got his head down and he's charging like a bull with his head down. That's what you're saying, right?
Not quite down like that, but maybe in between. That would be accurate.
All right, so he's in between here. If he's got his head down, as you tell us that he does, and you say you can't see his face, that's what you say, right?
No, I just don't remember whether I noticed his face or not. He was just this ball of fury coming at me, and that's what I remember.
And you said you couldn't see his eyes. That's what you just said, right?
I don't remember seeing his eyes.
So that means you didn't see his eyes, right?
That doesn't mean that. It just means I don't remember looking into his eyes.
So if he's down in this position that you're talking about, with his head down like that, how could he possibly know to come after you if he's looking down? How is he going to do? Feel his way around?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
How you feel and how you know of the circumstances and the situation that you were in. With regard to Exhibit 205, do you think in your mind, because you were the one that was experiencing, do you think that, what is, do you?
Okay, counsel approach. Counsel approach.
Sir, ma'am, with regard to, you were being asked about how you were aggrieved about the fact that he may have been cheating with the defendant. You remember about that?
Yes.
And you were asked about, how many times he had been cheating, correct?
I'm not.
You were asked about that, right? And that was part of the breakup, right?
Yes.
Do you think that it is appropriate, given everything that they claim that he put you through, do you think that it is appropriate to take a knife and slash somebody's throat?
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, you said that many times, that you tried to kill yourself, right? In court.
I don't know that many, but I've recounted a time that I did.
You said it more than 3, 4, 5 times, right?
Perhaps.
And in fact, one of the things that you told us about was that, well, when you were in the Maricopa County Jail, that you tried to kill yourself, right?
No, Siskiyou County Jail.
Siskiyou County Jail. So you do remember that. And that when you tried to do that, you took some Advil. Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes.
And that what you did then is you took some razor, right?
Yes.
And then you cut yourself, right?
It was a nick.
It was a nick. And because it stung so much, that you said, no, this is not the way for me to go, right?
I didn't say that.
You said it stung and that's why you stopped. Isn't that what your direct testimony was?
That night, yes.
Right. And that's the night that I'm talking to you about, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about any other night, am I?
It sounded like you were.
No. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about any other night, am I? Do you understand that?
Okay, I understand that.
And you nicked yourself and it hurt, right?
Yes.
And I think the word that you used, stung, right?
Yes.
To use your standard, ma'am, of how you stopped because it stung. Can you imagine how much it must have hurt Mr. Alexander when you stuck that knife right into his chest? That really must have hurt, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
I'm gonna tie you to a tree and put it in your ass, by the way.
What's that?
I'm gonna tie you to a tree and put it in your ass, by the way.
Oh my gosh. That is so debasing. I like it.
Like, since you've left, I check off every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day.
Are you serious?
Well, it's always just a fucking him.
Oh, you're calling me right now. I wish you were here. If you were here, my grandparents would sleep. I'd let you right in my bedroom. We'd shut and lock the door, and we would just have a big fuck fest. You'd go at it all night.
Oh, it's still, baby. I'm gonna be there.
I want you to come.
Oh, baby. Don't worry. Oh, I could eat cream pie, too.
What's that? pumpkin pie.
Freaking. So,
Right now.
it's hard. Naturally, so, like, the way you know, it sounds like he was 12-year-old girl having her first orgasm. It's so hot.
Sounds like what?
12-year-old girl having her first orgasm.
Points out to the point as far as the May 10th, 2008 conversation in terms of showing that she has no problems lying on the telephone where she says, well, yeah, I was faking it. And you know what she said she was faking. Even though you heard her squealing like a cat. No, that's just me faking it. Sir, didn't you tell us just minutes ago that she was suicidal?
She told us she was suicidal.
I understand that's what you're saying now. I'm asking you to think. You don't have any memory problems, do you?
No.
I'm asking you to think back to maybe 5 minutes ago.
She had slashed his tires several times. She had slashed his, he had dated someone earlier that year. She had slashed her tires. She had sent threatening emails to both Travis and his girlfriend at the time. She had followed us on the first date that we went on.
In this case, ma'am, whatever time frame you used when you testified and spoke to the jury, you indicated that Mr. Alexander had a pattern of lying, right? Correct. And you just said that if anybody who has a pattern of lying is a liar, correct?
Oh. I said that Mr. Alexander lied, yes. The only person I see who has a history of lying so far is Mr. Alexander. I haven't seen that in her history prior to that.
On the one side, we have demeaning multiple verbal slurs, a slap, a shove, a chokehold, and a lunge perpetrated on Jodi. On the other, we have a gunshot to the head, a 4-inch deep slit throat, and close to 30 stab wounds delivered by Jodi to Travis. Is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence Jodi?
I think what happened to Mr. Alexander is horrific.
Objection.
Sustained.
I think that self-defense.
Objection. Order beyond the scope of the question.
He said beyond the scope of the question.
Objection. The question is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence Jodi?
Obviously, yes.
No.
Guys, well, that's it for this video today. What did you think about Juan, the police prosecutor? He's vicious, isn't he? All right, so this is probably the last video I'm going to get to you before Christmas. At the time of filming, it is the 15th of December, but I'm going to have many more videos to you in the new year, so 2022, so stay tuned. If you like this video, don't forget to actually like the video. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you on the next one. Merry Christmas!